In my past life, I used to be a merchant banker, specialising in mergers, acquisitions and takeovers. But by the time I'd reached my 40th birthday, I'd seen cruelty and corruption so egregious, I had to make a very important decision. Then I was on a business trip to India, and I watched as a milkman dragged his injured cow to the gates of a slaughterhouse. The cow had been hit by a lorry and had broken her spine. She was in agony. And he dragged her to the slaughterhouse gates, and alongside her walked her starving, bedraggled little calf. And to get this animal to move, he was throwing chili powder into her eyes and shoving sharp objects up her anus. And when he got to the slaughterhouse gates, before he handed her over to the butcher, the bastard milked her. Now, if that doesn't change the heart of a man, nothing will.
While you're doing that, give me the first question, just so I can start to think about a good answer. My name is Matt Stellino, and I'm an activist here in Sydney. So I'm born and raised in Sydney, southwest in Campbelltown. Spent the majority of my life between Campbelltown and Liverpool, and moved back to Campbelltown after I got out of the army. I guess being your typical 19-year-old guy, obsessed with, guns and explosives and figuring, might as well get paid to learn about it properly. I would wake up in the morning, ride my bike 8Ks to work, go for a 5K run with the platoon sergeant in the morning, lift some weights in the afternoon, ride my bike back home, all the while getting paid, doing weapons drills and learning about that sort of stuff. Discharged from there and got into sales because it was a transferable skill, one of very few that infantry offers, is the ability to read people. By this stage, I'd learnt really well how to read their body language, their emotions, their tonality, their words, what they were trying to say, what they were trying not to say. When I speak to people, the sales skills come in to help the people buy veganism, lets them find out why it fits for them. But at the end of the day, I think the difference between a caged egg and a free-range egg versus not buying eggs, what I mean? Here's a little bit of difference. Not buying eggs is all the way over here. Right, do you ever want to be the reason why an animal is made to feel pain? They reckon casein is actually the main, factor in turning, or the key in turning pre-cancer growth on and off in humans. Better water use, better land use, better protein per acre, better calories per acre. Plants win out, man, every time. It's logic, man.
I'm not knowledgeable enough to argue in that topic, but you're right, a very good point, man.
I do predominantly outreach activism, if I can. Definitely support all forms of activism. I think we need absolutely every approach at all times. But I find my strongest suite is definitely outreach activism. I love engaging conversations with people, understanding somebody's psychology as to what drives them, what leads them to make the decisions that they make, and not only understanding for myself, helping them understand it, and then seeing if it lines up with who they are as people, if it lines up with the ethics that they hold, and then how to transition them over to being vegan. Outreach number 0. Outreach number. Outreach number. Could I get your number, Cheesy? Could I get your number?
Can I have it? Can I have it? 9.
Could I get your outreach number, Michael?
6.
6? Excellent, thank you. For me, that's the form of activism that brings me the most peace. It's fulfilling in the sense that, I guess, it chips away at the industry, and it chips away at the overwhelming feeling that the industry is going to go on forever.
Guys, we're going to get started. Thank you. So before we begin proceedings today, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to the elders past and present. I would also like to extend my respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are present today. Thank you all for your patience. I apologise that we're starting a little bit late today. We had issues with the code to get in. But we're here now, and I'd just like to say, in terms of animal rights activism, this is sometimes what can happen at an action, and you've got to think really fast and you've got to think on your feet. So that can be a bit of an example for some of you.
I think the thing that drives me on a daily basis is knowing that anywhere around the world right now, there is suffering. Anywhere. And that's just, and I don't mean just with animals, I mean with people as well. Anywhere. I live in Northern Beaches, Sydney, New South Wales. It's a beautiful area. I really love being near the water. There's lots of bush around, nature parks around, even though it's a bit expensive. I grew up in a single parent family. There were lots of single parent families where I grew up as well. Lots of people struggling to make ends meet. We lived in community housing. There was homelessness, drug and alcohol issues in the local area that I grew up in. I left home at a very young age. I ran away from home when I was 15 years old. Did manage to get myself a job, lived in a flat. I was quite motivated to be independent, but it was quite a rough time, quite a tough time for me then. I was away from family for a while. Had to learn very quickly how to look after myself and hold down a job, and left school early and all that kind of thing. So I think some of that was influenced by the area that I was in, the people that I was hanging out with. I was just in such a hurry to grow up.
About this yesterday, we cannot have true peace with the absence of justice. So if we're looking for a peaceful world and a peaceful society and peace for animals, we cannot have true peace without justice there. So
I do identify as an activist, but I'm starting to reflect on that quite a bit, and rather than just calling myself an animal rights activist, I feel that I'm a social justice activist. My priority is animal rights, but I really want to start focusing on other social justice issues as well, because I feel that all systems of oppression are the same.
Relate to a delineation of power. Now, we've got different jurisdictions at the government level. In Australia, we've essentially got 3 layers of government. So we've got the federal government, and they deal with matters relating to
My outreach hasn't been the most effective of late. I feel quite triggered in those circumstances. I haven't been doing a lot of public actions lately. I've done a few rescues and things like that. And a lot of those left me quite angry, pretty pissed off after some of those. And I feel that I'm not effective. It's been a little bit boring lately. It's just been all background organisational stuff. And also just been reflecting a lot on where I can be the most effective in the community. You know, so doing a lot of research, a lot of reading, listening to podcasts, reaching out to other organisations as well, looking at opportunities to collaborate.
Since the 1st of January last year, there has been a death on track or a track-related death every 3 or so days. That is a lot of horses.
Excuse me.
Think about what you're supporting today.
Oh, shut up. Go and get a job. It's Sunday. Go get a job.
There are so many goals I have when it comes to activism, and of course the primary goal is the end of oppression in society, the creation of a just and fair society where we can see humans and non-humans on an equal level, where we see each other as humans, as equals, where we're no longer screwing the environment over for greed and profit. You know, that would be the primary goal.
Testing, testing. The following list is a list of horses killed on track from the 1st of January 2018 or in track-related incidents. 5th of the 1st, 2018, Leopard Brenner, 6 years old in Canberra, catastrophic breakdown, killed. 7th of the 1st, 2018, Orient Line, 6 years old, Caulfield, fell during the race, killed. 10th of the 1st, 2018, Western Pearl, 5 years old at Ladbrokes, eased out of the race and killed.
Hobart born and bred. I was born at the Calvary Hospital in Hobart. When I turned about 6, my family hit the road and we travelled around Australia for about 2.5 years. So, you know, we travelled through remote communities, places like Tennant Creek. I went to school, you know, with a lot of our First Nations people. We saw a lot of the outback mining communities and very rural communities as well. So I was exposed to a lot of different people and ideas and cultures and ways of life. We came back home to Hobart and basically lived in Hobart until you know, a few years into my relationship with my soon-to-be husband Anthony, and we had a couple of kids together. We've got 3 children, and we moved out to southern Midlands of Tasmania to build a house, and no white picket fence or anything like that. It's just, you know, very, very simple out here. So yeah.
Not 1, but 2. I've got 2 of the buggers. Yeah. Oh, awesome. Begins. Hello. How's it going? Oh, sweet. We're just wandering up right now. So, yep, so just give us 2 seconds and we will be there. Sweet. See you shortly.
I've been doing this for about 5 or 6 years in varying forms. So I identify as an animal liberationist. I'm an animal rights activist in essence.
I wonder if there's going to be enough water to
Ah, there's bugger all. There was basically none last year.
Maybe we should bring this up.
Yeah, what?
Stand up.
Oh, I was like, what the fuck's a sup? Like,
Sure.
How are we going?
good, good. We've got a lot of people down there sort of gathering. I'm not entirely sure what the game plan is yet. But
Okay, no worries. Wonderful. All right, well, I might, if you don't mind, I might just conduct a really quick interview with you first.
Yeah, sure.
If I have to slip off, I've already
Sure thing.
spoken to you. Alright, where the fuck was my... Okay, so if I could just get your full name and title, please.
Christy Alger, A-L-G-E-R, spokesperson, Animal Liberation Tasmania.
Everyone's got an opinion these days, you know, that's the way it is, so they can do what they want. The horses are still going to run today, unfortunately, it's the way the world goes.
Well, everyone's got an opinion, so at the end of the day, they've come out to stand for what they believe in, so be it, I guess.
Everyone's allowed their say.
I don't know much about horses, but no, I think it's a good activity. Gives another activity for people in Hobart to go to.
I used to work in the industry, so I know exactly what goes on, and it's none of that shit.
Like I said, everyone's got an opinion, so...
They're going to yell all day, and then at the end of the day, they'll go home and go to bed, and they might think about it, but at the same time, this year, next year, when I come this time next year, you'll probably be here, they'll still be here, this will still get run.
But it's not the industry's fault. Like, yes, there's a lot of money to be made in this industry, but at the end of the day, everybody does it because they love the animals, simple as that.
I don't know, I don't really have an opinion, but apart from racing, I like horses too. So, of course, you want them to be in the safe hands and that, but if they're not in the safe hands, they won't be here, simple as that.
It's about 110 horses I've documented dying on track or in track-related deaths, and they're dying horrific deaths. Shattered bones, we're talking collapses, cardiac arrest. Clearly, this is something that horses should not be doing. In the beginning, my core motivations were kind of superficial. It was for the animals. I decided to become an activist and be engaged for the promotion of animal rights. As I've progressed through my journey of activism, it's become so much more multifaceted. It's not just this singular notion of for the animals. It's this holistic dedication to anti-oppression.
Earlier this morning, I visited the Governor-General here in Canberra and he accepted my advice for an election to be held on the 18th of May.
For the first time in a generation, the outcome could come down to Victoria, where even blue ribbon seats may fall to Labor.
And that means there are a lot of long days ahead for hard-working candidates.
This is about as good as it gets. People smiling at you, taking your vouchers, taking your... people smiling at you, taking your flyer, promising to vote for you. Can't get much better. So I ran for the Animal Justice Party in the state election and then again in the federal election.
So the Animal Justice Party is a political party for animals. Essentially it started when a few people within the animal rights organisations realised that there was nobody really in Parliament that was standing up and fighting for legislative protection for animals. You know, not even the Greens were really doing what we felt was necessary to protect animals within our legal system. So a group of activists actually put together the Animal Justice Party and we started winning seats in Parliament. We've now got 3 members of Parliament, 2 here in New South Wales and 1 in Victoria.
I'm trying to take that fight for animals' rights into the Victorian Parliament.
Industries did not kindly decide to open their doors and show their processes to the public. They became public knowledge only because activists exposed them.
I'm a firm believer that getting change for animals works off several different levels, but they all must work together. It needs activism, it needs advocacy, it needs education, but at the end of the day, it still needs political change. Because 100,000 people can stand on the steps of Parliament demanding that the government change a policy to be more compassionate, to be more kind, but they can just ignore them. What they can't ignore is votes. Rod Barton from Transport Matters, Clifford Hayes, Sustainable Australia, Catherine Cumming, who is an independent, or was with the Hinch Party, The 2 Hinch people are right up there behind you. They have that whole bench to themselves because it was originally allocated to them for 3 people. Now Catherine sits down here. So, and then I will stand and I will say, thank you, President. Today I rise to, with a question without notice, and my question is for the Environment Minister, Lily D'Ambrosio.
I have pleaded that parliamentarians refrain from divisive and hateful speech towards members of our community simply for having different beliefs. But regardless, they continue to find scapegoats and threats in order to foster fear and division.
Campbelltown prides itself on being a green, like not like political, but like thank you. Want to see us. Thank you. This really shows that it's a civic centre.
How's that look? I mean, a good shot? One of the polling booths within my region had been closed, Benangle, and it's kind of like a semi-rural hobby farm area. There are some like sort of 600 acre odd properties out there. Very few nowadays. Most of them are sort of like, you know, your 5 to 20 acre hobby farms. You know, this guy must have lived there a while. Got that impression. Comes up, Cobra, dries the bone, boots. I'm like, hey, go mate, Animal Justice Party. And he stops dead in his tracks, looks back at me, snarls one side of his face up and goes, you gotta be fucking kidding me, aren't you? I was like, sorry? He goes, you fucking ought to have a hide on you, don't you? I was like, all right, mate, have a good day. Mostly, I would say there is an overwhelming feeling of disgust from most people. But the question is, where does the disgust lie? You know, some people are disgusted in us. Others are disgusted in the industry for, you know, the ways they brutalise animals. And then you get, you know, a good percentage who can see the link and are disgusted with themselves for having paid for it for so long.
Look, I think that, you know, it's a hard conversation to have, but I think from like that really top-down approach, it's going to have to be a transition. And I mean, people are still going to need to eat. We're still going to be needing to farm, you know, plants in all different varieties. And I think that the government's role within that is to actually help with that transition for the farmers.
There's an inherent quality in human beings that they believe that they are all compassionate, that they would stand up if they saw something being done that they felt was wrong. And this extends through, for the most part, into animal welfare or animal cruelty. Because if most people who believe themselves to be caring and kind and compassionate saw how these animals were bred, saw how they lived their lives and how they were killed, how they ended up on their plate, they would make a very conscious decision to not continue to eat that way.
Most elections are every 4 years apart, unless called sooner, to help pass certain bits of legislation. Sometimes that can happen. I mean, this election's important to us because obviously right now is a crucial time where more people than ever care about the rights of animals to live free from harm. You know, a lot of Australians want an end to the cruel trade that is the live export. Whether they eat meat or not, most people want to see the live export trade end.
What I have found, having, you know, found myself here is, you know, you've just got this access to just knock on people's doors. And, you know, somebody might be a member of the Liberal Party or the National Party, and you come to them with something and you knock on their door and you say, I'm from the Animal Justice Party, and they sort of say, okay, we know what are you looking for me to do? And you say, well, actually we want to build a sea pen and we want to get these dolphins and retire them from entertainment. And they say, oh, okay, well, let's have a sit down and let's talk about that. So I think it's just really, once you're here, you just have that ability to knock on doors and to get things moving.
So did I tell you that I was putting in for a job with Emma Hurst? It's the candidate who was elected to the state senate on the recent state elections that went past. So I put in for a job in her office as policy and communications advisor. So I've got an interview tomorrow.
Oh, great.
Hopeful. If I don't get it, you'll have to just edit that whole thing off.
The green? Okay, no worries.
It's the opening weekend for the duck hunting season in Victoria. And so I'm heading down with a team of rescuers from Sydney. Animal Liberation put together a crew of people to head down. So basically the hunters are allowed to shoot 4 ducks. You're allowed to have 4 ducks in their bag over the open weekend. But to my understanding and from what I've read, what they tend to do is, because they want to stay, they'll shoot ducks and they don't collect them. We collect those ducks to try and get them to collect a duck that they've shot or injured. And the idea of that is that if you get them to collect that 1 duck, it's 1 less duck that they're going to shoot, because they then have to place that duck in their bag. It becomes one of the 4 that they're allowed to shoot.
Hi everyone, we just held a press conference on the steps of Parliament House, and the reason we did so was to let everyone know that today I'll be introducing a bill into the upper house in the Parliament of Victoria to permanently ban recreational duck shooting in the state of Victoria.
These guys? Yeah. They're fucking idiots.
Laurie Levy. I started the campaign in 1985 and put together a small team from Animal Lib in 1986, and we went out to the wetlands, and 15 rescuers had to go out and contest the issue with 100,000 duck shooters in Victoria.
So you're all team leaders in here? This is a team leaders meeting, so Dave will be back in a minute, hopefully.
Heard the voice.
And he's going to say a few words first, and then we'll just run through procedure for tomorrow.
We have had some good news. There were freckled ducks spotted on Lake Elizabeth, and as a result, they've actually now put a ban on Lake Elizabeth being completed.
The good thing about having wetlands closed off because of threatened and endangered species like freckled ducks is that there might only be 39 or 48 freckled ducks on Lake Elizabeth, but there are thousands of other birds that normally would have been targets for the shooters. So a handful of threatened species can protect thousands of other birds.
So we can just put pressure on the government from Andy and from CADS. So even if you just have time, just like take 30 seconds out of the morning and just quickly send me a message as soon as something happens with as much detail as possible, or Gonzalo, and we'll be liaising with each other, ideally both of us, but just one of us is fine if you don't have the time, just so we can really make sure we can share the stories of what's going on the wetlands.
All right, so we're about to head out onto the wetlands this morning. We'll set up. There'll be a base camp there, so we'll get some further instructions, and then we'll head out into position on the lake.
Yep.
So anyone have any questions? Everyone feel comfortable?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. And
All
the
right.
shooting's starting at 9, yeah?
The shooting is meant to start at 9, but we'll keep an eye out. We'll try to capture anyone who's shooting early.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. All right.
Thank
Let's load
you.
up.
You know, no matter how tired I am or how defeated I might feel sometimes, or, you know, or wanting to just hide in my own world, there are innocent beings out there that don't have the luxury to do that, you know, who are relying on social justice activists, animal rights activists to help them, you know.
welcome to Kerang. I hope you all enjoyed last night. And we're here for you. Avoid confrontations if you can. If someone you see is doing something you think needs our attention, please bring it to our attention.
Roy Morgan Associates did a study on public opinion on the duck issue at 87%. An overwhelming 87% of Victorians, city and country, want duck shooting banned.
Look for a road, basically.
Okay, maybe this is it. It takes us around.
There seems to be more hunters and a bit more activity on this side, and apparently there will be another team turning up as well. So there are more ducks and birds on this side. We did see some swans and things as well. So we're just going to head up and have a look around.
Well, I don't see duck shooting as being a sport. If it was a sport, the birds would be carrying guns, firing back. It's an unacceptable slaughter. Coverage over the years, along with the courage and commitment of our rescuers over the last 33 years. The numbers of duck shooters have dropped from 100,000 in Victoria down to 14,000 active duck shooters.
It's illegal to take our pictures without my consent.
Pardon?
It's illegal to take my photo without my consent.
Oh, don't worry, I've got a license, mate.
We want to eat this. Is there something wrong with eating ducks?
It's a profoundly disgusting notion to take away the life of another living being simply for our own purposes. And for what? For our taste buds. And just because we have been doing it for a long time doesn't make it right. Human beings have been robbing, raping, thieving, cheating for as long as they've been around. Does that make it right? Is there a happy balance on rape, pillage and murder? Why are we so selective when it comes to taking the life of a powerless living animal?
Given the way the focus is on animal rights activists and these anti-protest laws are coming up, I don't doubt that I'm going to have to look at the decision between maintaining direct action and civil disobedience and being a mum. Do you want to help me sort out the posters tonight for the march tomorrow? Do you want to help me sort out the posters for the march tomorrow? We'll do that tonight. Pull them all out from beside the bed. You can't force someone to be something they don't want to be. Sophia, our middle daughter, she is an activist in the making, has her own Facebook page, and she attends all the protests, and she's becoming more and more confident in herself. You know, she isn't afraid to say what she thinks. Sometimes that can be like she doesn't quite understand time and a place yet. So we're trying to teach her that there are times where you have to temper things back a bit, you know. But by and large, yeah, she's very, very good at what she does and expressing her ideas and her views. You got that? Alrighty, let's do it. So, what do you reckon you're doing swimming today? No idea? And of course my eldest Hazel, she's almost 19, and she's a budding photographer. She's very talented. That's not just me being a mother, she is a very talented young lady. And She does wonderful photography of like the social landscape, so at protests and festivals. She has a skill about capturing people's emotions at these rallies and marches. And
can I ask you something? You love these animals.
Yes.
How does it make you feel when you see their nostrils bleed, or when they do need to be put
terrible.
down?
It's shocking.
But if it makes you feel terrible, then why engage in it in the first place?
Rowley isn't an activist. He's my youngest son. He's very happy to be vegan, and if you start to talk to him on the issue of animal rights, Rowley will rant like the rest of us. He's very good at that. He's more scientifically and academically minded, so his focus in life is studying about dinosaurs and prehistoric mammals, and he likes to work out how things work, so a lot of pulling things apart and trying to put it back together and failing dismally.
Of the head and the body.
That's fantastic. You're doing such a great job. You're so detailed.
I know.
Anthony's not an activist in the sense that, he doesn't come to protests, and you won't see him locking on or occupying a government building. But he gives something that is, I think, so much more valuable than that. Not only does he look after our children when I'm off, walking into a slaughterhouse or attending a festival or speaking at a protest, he provides balance in my life. He worries. I mean, how can you not when I say to him, he comes home from work and I go, oh, I'm just going to fly to Victoria in a couple of weeks to be involved in an occupation of some sort. And he's like, where? And I'm like, I don't know. Who with? People. I can't tell you who. And that's worrying for someone. And a lot of late nights where he's been wondering where I am or whether I'm safe. And of course he can't communicate that safely. But he's very supportive, and he understands that this is more than just a phase or a fad or a grab for attention.
So the plan for the march today is, so there's a new route going up to the Queen Vic markets with all these people are going to be coming up, and then it's a bit of a different feel. This march is about solutions-oriented activism as opposed to the usual emotive chanting, making people feel bad in the streets. So we want to actually sort of break down that divide and get people to come over and think and listen and understand and actually provide some options for the future. Yeah.
I slept through my alarms. Of all the days make you drive an hour and a half. I can't even do you the courtesy of getting up in time. But they're mostly ready in pairs, so. This one's up. I did grow up a little bit further away from here with 5k, 6k's, but there was most of Campbelltown's always been a pretty rough area. I love it here, man, I really do. Like, yeah, some of the people are rough, but so am I. Like, let's see, where can we set up? Sorry? I have terrible hearing. What was that? Oh, I have no idea. I'm just here putting up a sign.
How you going, man? No, this is the only one we've found like this school so far. We've been to about 4, 5, so yeah. You got any to replace them? You need some cable ties to get them back up?
No, I'll go over to another one. We should have someone else coming shortly. Just very disheartening. Even the school.
Yeah, they left. Look at the only thing they left up was the United Australia Party one. It tells you how they're going to vote.
I'm Todd Rocco, sorry. Nice to meet you.
Matt. Nice to meet you.
So the federal campaign was a lot more intense than the state campaign. You had to do certain things, like I had to check that I wasn't a dual citizen anywhere, which is quite an extensive process. From there, I had to, field questions from media, from journalists, managing volunteers on election day, and then going around and setting up for election day, pulling down all the stuff on election day was quite a busy time.
Hey man.
Hey dude, how are you?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, just. I'm hoping that you want to meet me at Gloria Jeans on Queen Street.
Gloria Jeans what?
On Queen Street?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Because I'm dying for a coffee, and that way I can give you your cornflakes at the same time.
Easy man. Alright,
cool.
Is cornflakes the thing you put up, or?
Yeah, the cornflakes are the signs, and then I'll give you the how to vote cards as well to hand out.
Oh, okay, easy.
Alright.
And I also noticed, is there any chance I can change where I'm going?
Where would you like to go?
Well, the only thing with Ingleburn is that's my, all my kids' area.
Yeah, okay. I can put you at Minto.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean, they had much polling numbers for last year. But if you just want to head down to Gloria Jeans at Queen Street, I'll chat with you there.
Alright, man.
Alright, dude. Thanks. Bye.
See ya.
Could I please get a regular soy latte? Could I get half a raw sugar in it? And is it possible to give the cup a rinse? It's still got some dregs of coffee in there from last night. Thank you. The federal election was quite an important election in the minds of most people. The major political party who's in opposition to the government here, Labor, they ran with policies to end live exports for sheep. And there was a lot of people that I believe wanted that. Not many people would actively choose to commit an act of harm when there's no need.
Are you going to vote for the AJP?
100%. Why not? Better than the Labor Party. Better than the Labor Party, mate. This is the one. Vote now. Quickly. Don't leave Australia a chance. This beautiful dog here. Look at him. No ears. Poor thing. Thank you.
So, do you know the agricultural process for dairy? No? Alright, so cheese comes from milk? Yep. Milk comes from where? Where? Yeah, why do cows make milk?
Yeah, breastfeeding.
Right. They do, right?
Yeah. Oh no, I am supporting it.
Yeah. So if you to get milk, they literally have to start lactating. They have to have been impregnated. And then you've got to remember a farm is a business and a business needs to make a profit. So do you get more profit by letting that baby drink the milk that mum created, or by removing the baby so you can milk mum and sell the milk? It's a vile industry that purposefully breeds living beings with the sole intent of profiting from their death. How could an evolved, civilized society ever accept something like that as part of it? The answer is you can't. Not when we have such viable alternatives for our food sources, for our fabrics, for our modes of transportation.
Look at your perfect fold. Do I have to fold it that perfect?
Yes.
Please. My main job used to be working with young male offenders in the juvenile system. Unfortunately, I've been stood down from that position after the open rescue we attempt last year, the Lakesland Hens open rescue. An anonymous video was handed in and released via Legion and Hen Rescue on Facebook. And the video showed the conditions inside the shed. And basically there were thousands of hens inside this shed. There was no food, there was no water. And you basically just, there were hens dying in their own shed on the floor of the shed, stuck in between all the wiring of the cages, of the laying boxes and stuff like that. You know, hens kind of crammed all over each other. So they just showed the awful, awful conditions inside. So we entered the property and went up to the shed and again tried to negotiate with the RSPCA, with the owner, to release some of the hens. They refused. We managed to get access inside the shed. We started filling the crates and things like that that we had with hens, and unfortunately 13 of us were arrested by the police and charged.
They slaughtered every single one of those hens that we had homes for. So we're here now in court being charged with trespass, theft and animal cruelty.
Actually, let's just leave it for today.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it until we've got.
Yeah. We'll just come in and support
At least until we've got a feel for how it's going to go. Yeah. All right. But yeah, I mean, I'm really sorry, and thank you for coming out and you know.
Your case
is
priority, as you said.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I better get back in there. Yeah. And okay. Cool. All right. I'll see you guys in there. One of the barristers in our legal team, that they didn't feel that the demonstration outside would benefit our case at all. They're really concerned that it can actually reflect badly on us inside, and they're not really sure how the magistrate will feel about it as well. So they've just said for the, you know, at least for today to call off the demonstration, but it likely won't happen throughout the week if there's that concern there. We don't want anything to affect our case, so we've had to follow that advice, unfortunately. Like at the moment, I'm facing 2 trespass charges and a theft charge for the open rescue. I prefer to call it liberating and rescuing. Theft comes from the fact that the industry looks at animals as commodities to be bought and sold. And it's unfortunate that legal doesn't necessarily mean moral in our society. My goal as an activist and as the organiser of Legion is to push the boundaries. Whether or not I'm going to win, perhaps not in a local court, I'm prepared to appeal any decision that's made here and take it as far as I need to. So yeah, I'm feeling all right, yeah.
So thank you again for coming along. So a vigil is basically, or what we're doing is bearing witness to the trucks and to the animals on the trucks, which in this case is going to be chickens, on the way to slaughter. So the reason why we're bearing witness is to actually see evidence and to experience the fact that these birds, these sentient beings, were born into an industry which was just purely built around for food, or what is perceived to be food, and they're going into an abattoir and they have not seen any happy human being that's given them any form of love, attention, or anything up until now.
There's been these really kind of amazing moments where we've come together as a community to be one strong voice alongside the animals. It's not about being seen somewhere, it's not about, you know, being seen doing the most or saying the most or filming the most. It's just about all of us being there, united together as a strong voice for the animals.
There needs to be a paradigm shift in the ways in which human beings interact and relate towards each other, towards the environment, and to all other living beings. Now, in human history, only 100 billion human beings have ever lived. 7.5 billion people are alive today. And we human beings torture and kill 2 billion sentient, living, loving animals every week. If any other organism had done this, a biologist would call it a virus.
Animal rights protesters are currently staging protests right around the country. The most disruptive of them is here. This is at the corner of Flinders Street in Melbourne and also Swanston Street.
It's unplanned, so you can't say what you're going to do, mate. I can't tell you anything because it's unplanned. Even the police don't know what's happening.
I'm a resident from about 300 metres from here, and I am very concerned about the frequency with which some people think they're entitled to come and prevent other people going about their lawful business.
I think they're trying to get the right message across, but I think trying to shut the main street of Melbourne off probably isn't the right way of doing it.
It's a bit, you know, insane that they have to stop the tram work, but at the same time it brings a lot of attention to what's needed. And
I haven't got any kids, so I'm not wrecking the place. He hasn't got any kids either, so he's not wrecking the place. Neither does this bloke, so we're doing all right. We can eat as many cows as we like.
Animal liberation! Now!
Liberation! Now!
I'm not interested in giving these people support, mate.
From 7 this morning, more than 100 protesters shut down where Flinders and Swanston Streets meet, calling for action on animal rights.
It is shameful. I mean, this is just another form of activism that I think that runs against the national interest. And the national interest is people being able to farm their own land.
You can keep going through. The road's closed, just be careful of people.
Adelaide Day. Still very much though an ongoing situation here outside Flinders Street Station on the intersection of Swanston Street.
Everybody back, and you guys stand on the curb line.
What do we want?
Animal liberation.
Liberation. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Animal liberation. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Animal liberation. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Animal liberation.
There is a documentary, there's plenty of footage that they can watch if they want to learn more about it themselves. If the industry depends on them not knowing about it, it's the only reason they're able to operate. Anyone who considers themselves opposed to animal cruelty, which I think is most people, would be horrified if they learned about the gas chambers in pig slaughterhouses, or the grinders used for male chicks because they can't lay eggs. They're just sent into a blender on their first day of life. Or all the male calves who are killed because they can't produce milk, these kinds of things. So they're so commonplace and yet so little known. And these kinds of actions are going to continue to happen as long as pigs are still in gas chambers, as long as chicks are still being ground up people are going to get more and more angry, and the more people find out about this, the more who are going to join these kinds of actions, and it's going to get to the point where it can't be ignored, and people are going to realise this is not a fringe group. This is not a bunch of nut jobs. These are everyday people who think it's wrong to commit cruelty to animals. That's all that's happening here. If you bring it into their lives, if you disrupt their lives in some way, then it's more likely that they actually have to think about what's being put to them. And today what's being put to them is that what's happening to animals in farms and slaughterhouses is inherently cruel and wrong.
I'm Chris Delforce. I wrote and directed the film Loosened in 2014 and Dominion in 2018, exploring how animals are used and abused in animal agriculture across Australia.
Out of sight, out of mind, they cease to be individuals, most known only as livestock, faceless units of production in a system of incomprehensible scale, exempt from the cruelty laws that protect our companion animals. Their suffering, unseen and unheard, their value determined only by their usefulness to humankind, rationalized by a belief in our own superiority and the notion that might equals right, a notion that must be questioned.
I wanted to ask bigger questions about what we're doing to animals as a species. What is our relationship as humans to the animal kingdom? Is it one where we view ourselves as superior for whatever reason, and therefore we're able to do whatever we want to so-called inferior beings for our own ends? And I thought that's an issue that has come up time and time again throughout our history, with various groups of people thinking that they're superior to others and that therefore it allows them to do whatever they want. I think it's a pervasive idea throughout our history that we need to tackle head on. And it's not just about animal rights. It's about what the hell are we doing as a species? Are we capable of more than this?
You know, we are living in a society that is so manifestly unfair, and it is those who are different that cop the brunt of all of this. And we have a moral obligation when we have the privilege of, whether it's the privilege of wealth or of education or of being white, or the privilege of living where we do, having access to the resources we do, we have a privilege to, we have a duty to use that privilege to help others who might not be as privileged as we are.
Greater minds than mine have posited that this could indeed be our final century. The livestock industry is killing our environment. Its deforestation caused by this vile industry is affecting us in profound ways. Our oceans are dying, our rivers are being poisoned, our health has been affected so badly with cancers, osteoporosis and diabetes, largely by our bad diets. What more does it take for us to realize that we've got to change and the timeline is very short? It seems like a blinding glimpse of the obvious to me.
Doors closing. Please stand clear.
So with 9.3% of the votes counted, I'm currently sitting on 2% of the collective votes and 205 individual people having voted for the Animal Justice Party. So, or within my electorate anyway. Definitely more would have outside. So 205 votes within my electorate. How are you? Good, how are you?
Hello. You're being followed by a camera crew?
I am.
Right. You're making a film?
Yeah. Hello, how are you?
Harry.
Nice to see you, Harry.
How did you go today?
Yeah, fairly well, I reckon. So, we didn't have as many volunteers as I'd hoped, but yeah, it went pretty good. How are you? I struggle with people's names. I remember their Facebook names, Jackie. Yeah, but it's Citizen Wolf on Facebook.
Yeah.
There you go. If you had your actual name up, I'd remember. So, yeah. Hello, how are you guys? So I didn't win at either state or federal. At state level, I got enough votes to get the funding back, which will help for further campaigns. And we got enough Senate votes to get Emma Hurst elected into the Senate. So she becomes the second member of the Animal Justice Party to stand in New South Wales in the Legislative Council. Did you see one of the Liberal Sherpas putting up his sign in the morning, got stabbed with a corkscrew? Yeah. I was like, yeah.
I heard about it last night, but I was hoping that...
I thought it happened this morning.
It happened last night, but I waited for the story to break. Who did it?
Okay. Yeah, I just struggled to get the volunteers this turnout. Everyone who volunteered, I hit them up again straight away, and most people were like, oh, I'm working for it, or I've got the kids because my partner's working, or... So it was just harder to get volunteers.
Or just people didn't want to be there?
I reckon genuine. Yeah. Everyone said, yeah, just bad luck. Like everyone took away from it with such positive, like, you know, they thought it was a day well spent, and they were really pleased with, like, you know, the reception that they got handing them out, and yeah. Went back to, you know, a conservative Liberal government who, you know, is all about trade and business and, you know, economics, and so they keep the live export trade going, unfortunately.
I'd like to play you one song, then we'll just shut the. Well, she doesn't have much to say, but I'm going to play you one song, and I'd also like you to sing along a bit. And you might just find it a bit germane to what we're doing today. There is one thing all good people got to face. Those without a voice, they wait for our embrace. Hear the bells are ringing, can you hear the sound? Older ways we'll bury in the ground. So we rise up, it's not about me or you. Rise up, gotta get our message through. Rise up, how long will it be? Let our friends go free.
So we're heading out to a factory farm, and we're going out there to liberate some hens tonight. And this particular facility, I think, has about over 100,000 hens there, and there's quite a few sheds at this facility as well. So we're going out there to liberate some hens and basically get them the love and caring homes that they deserve. We're going to meet another 4 people. I've actually had pretty bad experiences with police, nothing to do with animal rights activism at all. I didn't hear the sirens, and I was coming to a stop at a traffic light, and he for some reason thought that I was trying to escape from him. He was pulling me over, I think for a random breath test or whatever, and the next thing I knew, I had a policeman pointing a gun through the driver's side window right at me, like right there. So it was more just a matter of getting them out as quickly as we could and not being able to document so much. So our priority now is to get the girls into the carriers, to get them out of the pillowcases as quickly as we can.
Wait, darling. Oh, look at her. There you go, sweetie. She just pulled the pillowcase. Number 2.
Anyone who's been inside a factory farm, there are thousands of animals inside these farms, thousands of them. And, you know, you might be liberating 20 or 30 of them. And in the grand scheme of things, for the farmer, that's pocket change. You know, I hate to use that term, but considering that they view animals as a commodity, that's essentially what, unfortunately, they are to them. To the animals you're liberating, it's a change in their whole world. And that's why I feel it's really important. There's that saying that goes something like, you know, rescuing one animal or liberating one animal won't change the world, but it will change the world for that one animal. So I look at liberations like that. That's why I feel that they're really important, because every life does matter. I think it went well. At this point of the night, you're just feeling good that the hens are out, they're safe, they're on their way to their, you know, their new home or their foster home, and they're no longer going to be exploited for their eggs. But there's that little bit of sadness too, that, you know, you leave all the others behind, thousands of others behind.
So up here is where I've got a few relatives, their ashes are scattered. So my grandmother Hazel and my grandmother Mormy and my Aunt Sally, they're all up here. So it's a pretty special place. As a kid I had a dream of coming up onto the mountain, and behind us off to the side is the organ pipes, these massive striated rock features, and I always had a dream of abseiling off them. I never realised that dream, but you know, I'm not dead yet. Grandma Mormy's ashes were scattered, which was just down this sort of area here, and tried to wait for a nice still moment so the ashes wouldn't blow up. And as soon as my mum had the lid off the urn, the wind picked up and just kicked all the ashes into her mouth, and so she ended up swallowing a fair chunk of her own mother. And we laughed and laughed. Yeah. So there's a plan to put a cable car up the mountain that'll go right across the face of the organ pipes. You know, massive pylons and cables and these bus-sized actual cars, and they're promoting it as being this environmentally friendly tourist development. And then at the top, at the pinnacle, they're going to put in a big visitor centre, but it's going to be a privately owned visitor centre with, you know, a whiskey bar, and there were even talks of a cinema and all this sort of crap. And apparently we're supposed to believe that they've got some sort of ethical scope for what they're doing. It's like, no, it's just nonsense. Yeah. This place means a lot to a lot of people. We should be trying to show as much respect as we can. Like what we have up here infrastructure-wise, we can't undo that. But we don't need to add to more. More metal, more bloody concrete, more privatisation. Some days I am extremely optimistic, some days I'm extremely pragmatic, and sometimes, some days I just want to lob a Molotov cocktail into the midst of things and just say, screw this, I'm done. I've always been able to deal with chaos and trauma by being just a very vague kid. Like when I was confronted with things, I just vague out. I'm finding it increasingly difficult to vague out. I'm constantly switched on, constantly thinking about what's happening out there. But at the same time, when there is such a vast injustice in this world, like how can you stop? Like how can you turn around and say, my small home unit is so much more important? And it's kind of a really difficult situation where they kind of got you over a barrel there. I also happen to know, though, that my children would understand that if I said to them that there is an ongoing injustice and I cannot stop fighting this, they would understand that, yeah, mum at least went to jail for a good cause. But it's not something that you want to consider or think about, or to put Anthony through that. You know, I've been a single parent myself, and put him through having to be a single parent whilst I'm in jail would be, it's not something I want to do.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
No worries. All right. I'm sure, like most people, anytime we ever do anything around here, seem to be pretty chill.
Yeah. And even when we do our demo.
The worst thing that I've seen in my activism, I would have to say, is Lakesland hens. For a number of reasons. One is the sheds that they were in, I think, were particularly disgusting, even by industry standards. The sheer scale of, you know, hens that had died outside the buildings, inside the buildings, and just knowing the various ways that they would have died and suffered was something that, you know, especially considering we got arrested there. So we had, I think, 8 to 10 hours sitting in a police cell with nothing to do but think about what we'd seen. And, you know, the mind obviously wanders with thoughts of how they would have died.
Animals are sentient, that they do not belong in slaughterhouses, having their throats slit for someone's taste, convenience or habit. It is unjust, and we will march today to show that. We will be doing this march silently. We've worked out that when we scream and shout, people do not hear us, as they do not hear animals. But if we march silently, if we have the drums beating, hopefully they will feel us.
If we were underpinned by need, then we could discuss levels of welfare that make it, you know, somewhat symbiotic. Without that need, which, let's face it, we don't have. We haven't had it for a long time. And it's just a nasty, vile habit that we've kept around from a time when we did need to harm animals to survive.
I think it was the German poet, the poet Goethe, who said that mankind is motivated not by reason, but by ritual. We are almost inextricably linked by the ways in which we've been brought up. Our mothers and fathers taught us that eating milk and consuming dairy was good for us. And we associate that food with pleasant memories, being in the loving embrace of our parents. And as a consequence, it's become almost hardwired. These memes have been accepted into our body politic. But as Rudyard Kipling said about young men dying in World War I, and if they ask you why we died, tell them that our fathers lied. These are facts. We've been sold a bill of goods, and those goods are faulty.
Wait for the others. So my interview with Amherst, I found out yesterday actually that I didn't get the job. There was a really strong pool of candidates, which is excellent. It'll mean the animals have the best representation, of course. But I got offered a casual position with her when others are on holidays or on leave. So, you know, for me, because I work my own business, I'm able to fit that in, which is really good. And it's a leg in the door to, you know, to do full time with her at some point, or, you know, get me up to speed for the next state elections, which will mean running as the lead Senate candidate, hopefully. I'll be an activist for as long as I'm needed, in whatever shape that is. Will animal agriculture end in my lifetime? I'd say I'm quietly optimistic, but if it doesn't, I mean, yes, I'll be disappointed, but it's not gonna affect my resolve. It's not gonna change one iota the amount of work or effort that I put in during my lifetime.
Were arrested by the police and charged. We spent probably about 11, 12 hours in lockup at the local station, and we were charged with a range of different, which ironically enough, we were charged with animal cruelty, despite the fact we were trying to rescue the hens. There was a malicious damage charge. There was the 2 trespass charges, and there was the theft charge as well. So all up, I think all up it was about 5 charges, and one of the activists, unfortunately, was charged with assault as well.
The legislation is literally saying that, you know, if you trespass and to collect evidence to expose animal cruelty, then you're risking jail time. To me, it seems like another form of ag-gag legislation. So another way of gagging animal protection advocates from exposing animal cruelty.
We've been in court since 9:30 this morning. It's just after 11:30, and it's basically been heard that whole time. It's been a little bit of back and forth. It's been interesting to hear her reading out her verdict. I'm looking forward to being able to get the transcript of that and looking into it a little further, because it can be hard to follow. I'm not scared, I'm frustrated. I'm really frustrated to just see the way that the law regards animals, regards these sentient beings as property.
As soon as an animal becomes a commodity, then they are reduced to a unit rather than a life. Animals aren't ours. They're not ours to wear, they're not ours to use for entertainment, and they're not ours to eat or to farm. And as soon as somebody is making money or profiting from animals, then there's the risk of abuse.
Thank you. We're done. It's all done. Made a new chubby little friend. All right. So basically guilty for aggravated trespass, and the sentencing was a $1,500 fine. So that's it.
Can we slide this that way a little bit so she can get her legs around?
Good. Where do you want to sit, Mark?
Yeah,
at the end.
Why
I
at
don't want to put my legs over it.
Without falling.
Over more than that. Come on.
Yeah, you see me climb a fence though, right? I think I'll always be an activist, in some way, shape or form. Whether it's still doing what I do now, I don't know. I'm open to learning, I'm open to new ideas. I think as long as I can stay constructive and what I do means something, then I'll continue to do it.
If you want to go on the megaphone, you can have a go on the megaphone. Yeah. Yeah, so what I did, because we have, ta-da! Ta-da!
We got the big printed working, but then I looked at it and I was like,
any other social justice movement, the voice pieces for that particular movement are those who are most affected by the oppression they're fighting. In the animal rights movement, the voice pieces aren't the animals, it's humans. And I don't like the idea of being a martyr, you know, under those circumstances, in that context. I would prefer to say I've been damaged, if that makes sense. I think some of my relationships with people have been damaged because it's very hard to maintain relationships with people who engage in the very acts that you are so fundamentally opposed to.
And next up, we have a very familiar maroon beanie and a probably equally familiar person attached underneath the maroon beanie. Christy Alger is obviously a Tasmanian animal rights activist powerhouse, and she's here to get you all a bit fired up.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for coming out today to march for kindness, for compassion, for mercy and for justice, for an end to socially accepted and indeed mandated violence against non-human animals.
I've felt less capable of connecting with my own children because I'm so focused on this huge thing that's going on out there. And so trying to shut down and be present for my children is extremely difficult, especially seeing as, you know, with social media and phones, you know, I can be sitting on the couch and the kids can be talking to me. But if I'm watching a brand new release of footage, or if I'm reading a brand new piece of writing on something, I won't even hear them.
To see 22,000 baby ducks in crates stacked head high, awaiting death. And it was so overwhelming and so beyond comprehension that all of my normal responses just shut down. They had to for self-preservation. I simply couldn't allow myself to feel, because in that moment, if I allowed myself to feel, it would destroy me. I'm not the sort of person who goes, well, I'm an animal rights activist and that's where it ends. You know, once my watch is done on the animal rights scene, anything that needs fighting for to create a kind and a just future, you will see me there. You will see me there now. My approach to activism is not single-focused, it's multifaceted, it's about our entire society. So no matter what's going on, you can bet you'll see this beanie. It'll be in the crowd, you know, it'll be on the news, bobbing around, you know. It doesn't end here.